Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Just two talking monkeys getting ready to talk about K-State sports. Fitz and Gills here with another edition of the PowerCat Podcast. No VIP version this week. Quite thinking the questions reached VIP level.
You question askers got to step up your game is what Fitz is saying, right?
I don't know. I mean, or maybe it's just me and I'm not in the mood. Just not in the mood, Gills. Just a very angry old man. I'm not angry. Let's just get rolling. Should we just dive into this? Should we stop messing around?
Let's do it.
Oh, you know what? We again did this. We did this last week. It
was my fault.
Yes, it was all your fault. Let me see here. Boom.
Wow. Nice. Covers up your head a little bit.
That was set up for 3 people. Dang it.
You could turn on the Cats and Dogs studio cam.
Oh, let's do it. We don't have any visible dogs. We don't have any visible dogs. Hold on. Dude heard his call. Extra camera. Share. Boom. Boom. There he is.
There we go.
Dude laying down. There he is. We're going to just have to do that. Thanks to Gabriel at Helping Hands Remodeling here in Manhattan, Kansas, in the area. If you're interested in deck or bathroom upgrade, that's his specialties, but he'll do a little bit of everything. Go find Helping Hands Remodeling on the www and give Gabriel a call. He's worked on our house. Wonderful stuff. There we go. That's it. Man, I need to adjust that camera, don't I? I need to bring it down. Hold on. Folks, this is how the sausage is made.
We're off to a rocking start.
Oh, actually, I can't control that
awesome
camera.
Stuff.
Never mind. Here we go. Let's get going with your first question. Boom. It's right there from third generation Wildcat. Which position group has seen the best player development during the Kleiman era? Seems to be good choices. That is a great question. Gills, your thoughts?
Well, you look at development, right? So you're not necessarily basing this off of a guy's talent level when they got to Kansas State or who they even were when they got to Kansas State. There's a couple of guys that maybe come to mind at various different positions, but there's 2 at defensive end that takes the cake for me. Felix Anudike-Uzomah and Brendan Mott, who, Brendan was an unrated guy by 24/7 Sports. Felix was a 2-star out of high school. Felix was a Big 12. Was he Defensive Player of the Year? And then
so,
Brendan Mott was the defensive lineman
and
of
Felix
the year
was that too. Yeah.
by their senior seasons. So that's all development, right? Now, 24/7 Sports are football recruiting analysts, and those guys evaluating stuff, they can't be 100% perfect, but they're not idiots, right? There was obviously some work that had to be done with, these 2 players. Obviously, there's, a couple of guys that you could also mention as unrated, DJ Giddens, right? Or 2 stars, even lower 3 stars. You can go down the line, but at defensive end, I mean, those are game-changing positions, right? Getting to the quarterback and Felix's 6-sack game, right, against TCU. TCU, right, in the regular season that he had.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 guys really just kind of changed the game. They wreaked havoc when they were on the field, and I know Felix hasn't panned out as much as he might have hoped yet in the NFL, and Brendan Mott does not, bluntly put, doesn't fit the NFL mold just with his body and size. But at Kansas State, by the time they were seniors, from the time they arrived to when they left, the development there was crazy at the defensive end position.
Great answer. I mean, I agree with that. But I'm going to go with tight end, which, kind of gets into a later question. I think Brian LePack as a coach has done an incredible job. He took Ben Sinnott, another guy that came as a walk-on at 210 pounds and now is a tight end in the NFL, and a really good one. So, that's one accomplishment, but you lose him. And last year you go 4 deep, and not just 4 deep guys that, fill the spot. All of them made plays. All of them proved to have value. That is incredible development across the board inside that room. Now you bring in Lincoln Cure, possibly in another year, Ian Primer, if they can land him. This has turned into a focal point of this offense. And it's all because of the development of the tight ends under Coach LePac. Both of those position groups, fit the criteria of this question and are both really impressive. And there's more than that. If we had more people on this podcast, dude, you got anything? Nope, he's asleep. They would probably pick another position group. That's how deep it has been.
Where's 2 questions? Number 1, where's Daphne?
Daphne is right here.
Okay.
To my right.
By your
she
side.
is she's hiding. She's being camera shy because she's wearing a diaper.
We don't want to see that.
No, you don't want to see me in it. You don't want to see her in it. As she's going through a little drug treatment.
Yeah.
We like drugs in this house.
Just like you.
Yes, very much.
Second question, real quick.
Oh,
are we getting, or maybe not us, but fans maybe expecting too much of Lincoln Cure while we're on the tight ends topic here in your number 1? And this dawned on me recently thinking about just spring ball and not being here in Manhattan, Fitz. I mean, you're jumping on a moving train that's moving very fast with an early game in week 0, but also just not only the depth, but the experience in that tight end room. Your Will Swansons and Ancios, like they're going to know more than Lincoln Cure is going to know. Now, talent aside, we all think the world of Lincoln, but that dawned on me the other day. That's just a random thought that I have about the impact of missing spring football.
I'm with you. I mean, we'll see how quickly he can acclimate. I think they're going to use him in more ways. They'll probably have design packages or designed alignments for him when they go to Dublin. But the upside's huge. And I do think in some ways I have too big of expectations, not as a football player, but the guy's name is Cure. So I'm looking for that. I mean, if he could catch some touchdown passes and cure cancer, okay, you're going to meet my expectations, kid. It might be too high. I don't know, but I'm going to go with that. But yeah, he's special, but he is going to be, brand new to everything when he shows up, late summer, early August for camp. And there's an acclimation. You got to adjust yourself because you're going to get knocked in the teeth more in one practice than you probably did your entire senior season.
Yeah.
Just the way it is. Okay. Claws out, balls out. Am I the only one worried about who our field goal kicker will be? I could see us going back on the season, see us looking back on the season and having several games where we lost because of the kicking game. I don't disagree with that. That's true with every team every year. You don't have a proven asset at that position as of now. But damn it, claws out, balls out. I wasn't that worried. And now you got me worried. Even dude's not worried. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. And here's the solution: score damn touchdowns. Just go do that. But we've seen the impact of not having a reliable field goal kicker because the spread between winning and losing in this conference is so finite, so tight. One missed field goal or one incredible field goal can win or lose games. And damn it. I'm a little worried now, but I think I haven't been hearing a lot of concerns as of now. So I will amplify this concern in the fall if I start hearing it's a real battle. I want someone to take control of that thing because they're that much better. We will see.
Kicker's got, if there's a missed kick, I think everyone wants to blame the kicker, but there's a long snapper and a holder there in there as well. And we saw that last season a couple times. Like, everything has to come together. It's not just going to be on Cub Patton or Leighton Simmering, who Grant on the podcast last week toward and we touched on this just a little bit. That's who Grant said he believed it was kind of a two-man show competition there for place kicking between Simmering and Patton. I said that Cub Patton, just based off of the name alone, deserves it in my book, but that's neither here nor there. Leighton Simmering's obviously been around for a little longer, and we'll see what happens. Kleinman's never shied away from a player or a kicker, right, doing more than just one thing. You look at Ty Zentner and all the stuff. He did it all, right? Kickoff and punt and field goal, correct? Like he did it all. So,
yeah, he ended up doing it all.
yeah. So I'm not overly concerned right now. Obviously, it's never a given that any kick's going to go in ever. And so, over the last number of years, there's been ups and downs. And, I know Chris Tennant wasn't perfect at Kansas State, but K-State, he had that huge kick against KU to win the game. So I'm not concerned right now, Fitz. I'm not going to buy into this question like you are. I'm okay on the kicking stuff right now. And that's a good thing to have a competition, right?
Yeah.
That means there's two guys that are worthy, right? It hasn't just been handed to one guy by default, right? There's guys working, there's guys competing.
I mean, when you got guys dueling for a job named Cub and Simon, I feel like we're talking about the mathlete team.
Simon or Leighton?
I don't even know now.
Leighton. Did I say Simon?
No, I said Simon.
Okay, I meant
we have
Leighton
a Simon. I am so out of it right now. Anyhow,
I can't wait to listen back and see you.
This thing's a mess. This thing's a mess. We've got an empty camera up to fill space because I put the logo in the wrong spot. Now my camera froze. My God, we're going to move on. We're going to move on. Show. Infected testicle. I'm sorry about that. I really am. I've been concerned about how you're doing. It seems like K-State always gets a slow start to the football season when they play teams they are supposed to beat. Will playing Iowa State week 0 help them start stronger? I'm not sure I totally buy the premise. I guess
yep,
I
agree.
I would have to hear him flesh it out a little bit much, but I don't like to be around guys with this medical issue. Look, I set aside the premise of the question. I do agree with the idea. If you go to Dublin and win that game against a rival on that stage, you're going to have energy coming out of it. You're going to have momentum. And that holds true for Iowa State. So the winner of that game is going to get a little juice. They really are. I feel like because of the circumstances around that game, it's amplified, the value of it. So you can't start the season by losing to your rival again in what is considered a home game. So you've lost a home game now. But yeah, I do agree with the idea. If you get that victory, if you get that win in Dublin, you're going to have a lot of, you're going to be on a roll, and you're going to roll right out of that game into the next one, and which comes up the next week. But yeah, I agree with that. It's a huge game. It's enormous for both programs because both of them could be Big 12 title contenders. And I've thrown out the idea that they could meet again in Arlington to end the regular season. So we'll see. We'll see. But I do agree it's a huge game.
Absolutely. And Tulane, I understand that was an early season game, and I guess Arkansas State in 2020, you can include that as well. But the question you mentioned this, Fitz, like I'd push back just a little bit. It's absolutely fair to say Chris Kleiman loses maybe a game or two every year. Houston last season on the road in October, that he's not supposed to lose, that you're supposed to win, right? But I don't think it happens. I don't think there's a trend or a pattern if it's early or later. It just kind of happens. So I agree with what you're saying, Fitz. This is definitely going to sharpen you up for a long season. But to say Kleiman loses these games early, and also, man, the question says supposed to beat. I understand K-State's the favorite in this game by a field goal. Last I checked, I think it was a field goal or so. But let's not act like Iowa State's going to be walking the park, right? They've got a returning quarterback.
I think he's saying like when they lost to Tulane.
Okay.
An early season game you should win, but I mean, they didn't do that last year. I mean, they beat Arizona.
It's not about my bad. I read the question.
Yeah. Yeah. They struggled at Tulane, but they won. They got off to a fast start last year, and then it was the end of the season. So that's where I kind of disconnect. But they have lost some non-conference games, but this isn't a non-conference game. And I think playing a conference opponent in the non-conference really helps. If you're worried about that happening, the concern should be Army, not Iowa State. But yeah,
or even North Dakota. You've got a long trip back, 7 days after. I mean, win or lose, that's going to be a tough one to get back for.
I agree. I mean, there's a lot on the line here. There really is. Here we go. Another one from K-State Brats or Brats. I prefer Brats. With the departure of Coach Riley, do we have anyone on the sidelines who can completely lose their mind when the time calls for it? I'm a little afraid of being too cerebral this year. I'll volunteer to do it if needed. But I think they're going to be fine. But I understand your concern. This line or the players on the line were almost trained to react to Connor Riley's emotion. That makes sense. Like they knew it was business time then. When coach loses it, there's a reason. I don't know if Brian LePack has that in him. He does seem more cerebral. I mean, for God's sakes, the guy's gone through law school. Maybe he'll just file an injunction if you suck in the first half. At halftime, he'll get an injunction and send you to the bench. I'm not sure how that works, how that'll motivate the team. But also keep this in mind with what I just said, how this unit has been trained to react to how Connor Riley treats them. There's a good chance that 4 of the core players on this unit are going to be new, that never played for Connor Riley, that are transfers. And if you have 4 out of your, top 7 guys that are new, I guess there's less affected by that. But all the guys coming back might have a sense of that and have to adjust themselves to it. But I think it's a fair point. It's not something I'm overly worried about until I see it happen. And then, K-State Brats, I promise you, I will bitch nonstop about it if that appears to be the case, because that's my job as a grumpy old man that covers Kansas State sports.
You're not old.
Ish. I'm old-ish.
In dog years, maybe you're up there, but
I'm like, let's see, in dog years, I can't do the math. I'm 420 years old. 420. I don't even understand.
Did you watch Will Howard's thing with John Gruden by chance?
Mm-hmm. Parts of it, yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, he was talking about Kleiman being a player's coach, and I spoke very highly of him. And like, it's not going to be Kleiman. He's not going to be the one to get on you and yell and scream and do all that. But I was like, when you were talking, I was thinking about all the coaches. I was like, I don't know. Like, there is not a clear-cut candidate to be that guy. And let's be clear here. Connor Riley is not that guy. He's only that guy maybe on, like, think of Frank Martin, off the field, off the court, nicest guy in the world, means so well. Coaching styles doesn't match, they're not mean people, I should say. You know what I mean? So I get that question for sure, but I don't have an answer, man. I don't know if there will be one. I don't know if Kleiman is going to be upset if there isn't one, though, right? Like, that's just not his style, of coaching. He is a player's coach. He's going to be there for his players. Was it Houston on the road, Fitz? I think last year in the press conference, he took the blame. I can't remember what he said, but he's gonna defend his guys, right?
Right.
And that's just kind of who he is, and maybe to a fault. That's frustrating at times. I get it, but Kleiman's gonna be okay if nobody's gonna yell and scream. And Fitz, I remember at the bowl game out in Arizona, like, there were some explicit words being said by Connor Riley when we were at open practice. It's
colorful,
yeah, to say it lightly,
but loved.
Yes.
Players absolutely loved him, and that's the concern. And here's another X factor. Drew Little is now an official coach. And I don't know if when you're an analyst or, whatever his title was before, if you feel empowered to, really rip into a guy on the sideline in front of a crowd. I don't know. Drew's pretty level-headed guy. I've known him a long time. And maybe that's not in his style, but maybe that's one of the things he adapts to. And where will Brian LePack be located? I'm guessing on the sideline, and Matt Wells will be upstairs. But, I don't know. We'll find out how that all is, put into place. But I think that is something, with his beard and the gray in his beard, I think the players would bow down to Drew's wisdom, especially if he used the F word as colorfully as Connor Riley did. I think I'm going to Text Connor, see if he has a few moments to send a voice text to me, dressing down Ryan Gilbert, so I can send it to him. Next question. Yep. Domer Cat.
Last one.
Well,
There you go.
I might add a bonus question here.
Oh, okay.
I might
Okay.
don't tell the artist to put down your paint. I frequently hear about records in one-score games and how that makes or breaks the season. And it's very true. Is K-State football talented enough this year to just win most games by double digits? Capable? Will they? Don't know. It's hard to do in this conference. It would make our jobs a lot easier, Gills, if we didn't have to cover games down to the last minute. We could just kind of type stuff up and walk down to the press conference, and I could do, no stress. And as I've said before, and I don't think enough people understand, this is about us. It's not really about the team or the fans. It's about us.
Of course.
Yeah. I think they're capable. If they do it in Dublin, that's a statement, because these two teams usually line up and punch each other in the face like a ballroom or barroom brawl. It'd be a ballroom brawl. It just wouldn't be as cool. So yeah, if they get off to a good start here and do that, and then ease into Big 12 and start asserting themselves, there's an upside to this team I haven't seen in a while, but that doesn't mean they're going to get there. And I feel really optimistic about this team, more so even than last year, because of the growth of Avery and what he saw, the improvement at offensive line and receiver. And that's just the offense side. I'm optimistic, and yes, I think they're capable of doing that, making fewer games tight. But in this conference, you're just going to play 3 or 4 for sure that are going to come down to the final possession.
I will say Kansas State University, the program, but Chris Kleiman as well, is huge on minor details, right? Forcing a fumble here, blocked kick there, making all your kicks, splash play on the third and special teams, right? Like that's how you win those one-score games, right? You make one less mistake than your opponent, or you make one more big play than your opponent. Like that's how you come out on top in a one-score game. And we're talking about the potential kicking issues, right? Kicking was an issue last season for Kansas State. Special teams globally as a whole. Like how many big plays Dylan Edwards had the punt return for a touchdown against Arizona, but there was not much splash. Special teams was a negative. Let's say it, Fitz. Special teams did more bad than good for Kansas State last season. If you want to come out on top in one-score games, you've got to get back to your roots. And I'm sure that that's an emphasis for Kleiman. I'm sure he knows that you need to get back to that. But, the game at Houston, Fitz, that's the third time I've mentioned this Houston game. Game at Houston last year was on special teams. And I know the play calling and just run the football and the weather, I get all that. But, there was 2 missed kicks.
2 botch snaps, yeah.
Like special teams are crucial. And so it's not just all on special teams, but you've got to make sure you're ironing out those fine details in the offseason. And that becomes a challenge, of course, when you're playing in week 0 and you wanted a longer spring or winter, workouts and a shorter spring practice, right? So it's going to be crucial at K-State. Chris Kleiman is hammering down the minutia here. And with so many newcomers out, in the transfer portal, right? A lot of stuff's going to, just little things you don't probably think about, right? I know Jerome Tanks talked about that with basketball. In the world of NIL, and guys come in and you just sort of expect them to know they are getting paid, right? They're going to know how to work, and they're going to work. They're going to put in that work, and they know our standards. Well, newcomers may not. And that goes obviously with, what to expect in the locker room, but also Fitz just on the field, those small little details. One little mistake can lose you a game against Iowa State. If you win it, though, if you come out on top in a one-score game, that just breeds confidence. That gives your DNA in your locker room that you can find a way to win, even if it might be an ugly game. The one-score games, yeah, it's true. It makes or breaks the season sometimes.
Yep. This is an important thing. You don't put yourself in peril. take care of business and move on. Avoid those close games. That just is nonsense talk for me. I don't know how you avoid that. Look, this will be a measurement of how good this team is. It just will be if they can open up games and win comfortably and make teams play from behind, which puts a lot of pressure on the inferior team if you do that to them. Okay, one more question because Brian Hanley, Big B, and I just did the Big 12 Insiders for Thursday on the circa over-unders for every team in the Big 12. Kansas State is 8.5. I think that is highly attainable for this team, but give me your thoughts on 8.5 as an over-under win total for the Cats.
8.5. Last I looked, I don't know if the article's gone up yet or not, but it was -110 on each way. So like 8.5 is the line. I think Arizona State was 8.5, but like the under was minus like 140 or 150, right? So the under's kind of where they're projected to go, but it's truly 8.5 fits for Kansas State. So that's where the money has set that line. In a vacuum, I think Kansas State's a 9-win team or better, right? Just looking at Kansas State's roster, what's going on in Manhattan in the locker room, but you do have to factor in, the opponents. That matters a lot. And I feel like we're just wasting time even talking about a team being good or bad. Just look at what happened last year in the Big 12. I mean, come on, like you're just wasting your time. That being said, you do have Texas Tech coming into town, like good teams. And how many freebies are there on the schedule? Like, I guess Oklahoma State might be deemed to be easy, but they didn't fire the coach. It's a road game, right? So it really does kind of all depend and fall on your opponents, right? And how good or bad teams you're playing are. And I think Kansas State is very fortunate to have 3 byes for this upcoming season. But I did look at the teams that Kansas State's playing, who they play the week before. I think it's KU and it's one other one. I can't remember the second one, but they're also coming off of a bye when Kansas State's coming off of a bye. So you do kind of lose
a little advantage.
That advantage there. It's nice to have time off, but so does the other team. So a lot of it depends on just the way the schedule kind of plays out with how your opponents are. And of course, injuries play a part in your team and the opponent. So I do like the over though, Fitz. I do like the over. Avery Johnson's going to have to stay healthy, and that's not a slight at, Knuth or Barnett at the backup spot, but you're going to need Avery Johnson to be healthy. And what I mean by that is he's going to have to be using his legs, right? He's going to have to run the football.
Or better.
And if he's getting dinged up, but he's still there in the game, yeah, that's great to have QB1 out there, but you want him using his legs. You want him to be aggressive on the ground. And last season, at times, we just didn't exactly see that. So I do like the over, though. Did you guys kind of agree with that on the Big 12 Insiders? But I do like the over.
Yeah, I do too. Again, like we said earlier, the Iowa State game's huge. Mm-hmm. You win that game, you're going to probably win the other, your non-conference games. So we'll see. But then you're looking at, 5 wins in conference to get you to the 9. And, if you lose that game, 6 wins is still pretty attainable in conference if you run the non-conference schedule, including playing at Arizona. So, but I like the over in that. And it was an interesting, going through everyone's schedule and trying to figure it out. There's some pretty good bets and some that I just wouldn't touch in this conference. But as you know very well, Ryan Gilbert, if it's a sports bet, I shouldn't touch it at all.
No, but nobody should. But it's tempting,
You touch it a lot.
I honestly have stepped back a lot from it, to be honest with you, Fitz.
Really?
After my big win with the Steelers from those 2 seasons ago now, I've stepped back a little bit. Came out while I was ahead.
That's really smart and mature of you.
Mm-hmm. I'm growing up.
God, that sucks. I liked little Gills that had no direction, drank too much, worked late nights at a bar, and now he's adulting.
You know how I'm really adulting, Fitz?
How?
It's when you have gout in your foot.
That's true. Gout immediately advances you to two things. One, you're old, and two, you might be royalty, because gout was in the kings in the old days, because they're the ones who ate the meat rich diets that lead to gout. Maybe you're King Gills.
There you go.
I got to stop it on that. I can't.
Perfect way to end it. King Gills.
King Gills.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.